Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, review the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. So it is turning cooler and it is remaining very unsettled throughout the rest of this working week into the weekend. As we've seen over the past couple of days, over the last few videos, Friday and Saturday is the risk of seeing some snow return to areas further northwards and westwards, potentially to low-lying areas for a time, but especially over the hills. And this is because we're seeing an area of low pressure pushing out of Greenland, and inside it we've got a lot of cool or cold polar maritime air embedded, essentially meaning those temperatures are going to drop close to around sort of the mid to low single digits, with the dew points around freezing. Overnight we could see a bit of evaporative cooling, and we could see something a little bit wintry. Again, we're not expecting anything too major, but a bit of a change to what we've had the last couple of weeks where it has been incredibly mild. Beyond that, though, we continue to see unsettled conditions throughout the next week or so, but remarkably today we've seen quite a big change in the longer term outlook. We have been talking about a higher pressure build as we head into early to middle of March, and that has continued today, but interestingly, all three main runs really build that high pressure up towards Scandinavia and attempt to push in easterly winds, potentially even very cold easterly winds. Now, we've got two problems with that. It is in the longer range, therefore we've got a lot of uncertainty, and the cold air available across parts of northern, eastern Europe up towards Scandinavia isn't really there this year. And that is because it's been so mild the past couple of weeks. If this had happened a month or two ago, then it could be really cold indeed. But at the moment, easterly winds definitely looking pretty plausible, and even likely from some of the runs today, but not tapping anything into anything too major at this stage. Now, we think the reason why we're seeing these easterly winds suddenly come into the model output is because that sudden stratospheric warming that we've seen over the past couple of weeks, which did culminate about 10 days ago, and we're seeing another warming take place at the moment. It's finally reaching the troposphere, and that's why we're seeing this sudden switch in the longer range. But of course, we'll explore that in the second half of the video. So remember, if you enjoy the video, do like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, a few showers around at the moment, but it's actually a fairly dry day, as we've got a brief ridge of high pressure between that low that gave very heavy rain through the weekend into Monday, and more low pressure systems coming in off the Atlantic. You can already see a few showers starting to push in, and this is the first signs that things are starting to turn a lot more unsettled once again. Today it's still been fairly chilly around, a bit of yellows developing, so temperatures maybe just about getting towards 8 or 9 degrees, but for most it's around average for the time of year, feeling a little bit cold with a pretty brisk wind in places. But it is going to turn chillier, and it is going to turn even more unsettled over the coming days, as we can see on the latest UKV. Now, over the coming hours, we've got a decaying weather front across parts of the Midlands that is just going to fizzle out really into nothing overnight tonight, and then we start to see some actual more active weather fronts coming in off the Atlantic for Wednesday, still fizzling out as it progresses eastwards, but it is going to bring a change as we do head into Wednesday evening and Thursday. We're going to see much fresher conditions, cold conditions perhaps, and some really quite hefty showers coming in off the North Atlantic. You can see once that weather front clears the far southeast, air behind it's quite a bit cold, and you can see there's quite a few showers falling as snow, especially over higher ground, but not exclusively, where we do see those higher precipitation rates, and of course the risk of evaporative cooling. Beyond that, as we head into Friday, that's when the real risk of something a bit more wintry could prevail into the first day of March. Some actual heavy snow across parts of Central Ireland there, again over the high ground mainly, but the risk of low-lying areas, at least for a time, falling out of the sky. And then that weather front pushes into parts of England and Wales, and again could be some snow over some of the higher ground, moderate hills, 100, 200 metres, probably sort of primed area for seeing some falling snow in these areas. Again, very marginal. Most areas will see rain, maybe sleet. Only a few areas would see snow in this scenario. And it's still not pinpointed exactly the positioning of these weather bands, by the way. So don't take this as too gospel, but we're just emphasising the risk of a bit of a mix into Friday. And that continues through much of Friday afternoon, especially into the overnight hours, where we could see some further wintriness further north as eventually all that precipitation does clear, but still plenty of showers around, some of them falling with a wintry flavour. Into the weekend, staying pretty unsettled and staying fairly chilly further northwards, but we'll eventually see the winds start to veer for more of a southwesterly as we head into the following week. Now, if you look at the max temperatures over the coming days, you can see as we head into tomorrow, turning a little bit milder, maybe 11 or 12 degrees at best. And into Thursday, starting to cool down from the northwest again, maybe only mid to low single digits in places, high single digits further south and eastwards. Into Friday, turning a lot colder, many areas touching freezing overnight. By Friday afternoon, struggling to get much above 4 to 7 degrees. And you can see where we've got persistent precipitation across South Wales, South West England, parts of central southern England, actually not getting much above 1 or 2. And that is the power of evaporative cooling, where it really holds those temperatures down. Again, the risk of anything close to freezing will only really be over the higher ground, but there is the risk of it being only 2 or 3 degrees at low-lying areas, which is just about cold enough for seeing falling snow. So the risk is there on Friday. We're not going to see anything significant. That is completely ruled out, but perhaps brief wintry wonderlands in a few areas is plausible. Into Saturday, another cold night as we see those temperatures drop widely towards freezing. And by Saturday afternoon, more widely around those low to mid single digits, maybe 7 or 8 degrees at best. And that continues into Sunday. Again, pretty harsh overnight frost where we see clearer skies. But as that wind direction starts to shift and that cold air runs out, maybe 9 or 10 degrees. And you can see those upper air temperatures initially through Friday and Saturday are pretty chilly, down towards -5, -6, so not bitterly cold, but chilly. And then as you head into Sunday, those upper air temperatures start to climb up slowly as the air does fizzle out, lose its cold, and we start to see the wind direction start to shift. But as I said though, longer range definitely is some real plausible ideas of easterly winds developing. Now the latest GFS has a westerly flow in at the moment, but we see that low dive in from the northwest, and that's going to turn it very unsettled, and it is going to turn it potentially wintry in a few places. Beyond that, generally stay with more of a southwesterly, but look what happens. High pressure builds up towards Scandinavia. In around a week's time, we start to veer that wind in from the east. Now, it is a bit of a long-winded easterly wind. It takes a good while to properly get going, but it does eventually, and it does turn in some chilly air. Now, again, we're not expecting anything majorly cold. Again, subtle differences could bring some very cold air in, but this GFS brings slightly chillier air in for the north and eventually some colder air for all into the extended range, but nothing major. Again, if that -10 to -15 area came our way, which is plausible, then it could turn very cold. But at the moment, the GFS only hinting at maybe the -5 line coming in, as it's not quite as clear cut easterly as you need for something very cold this time of year. So very much one to watch, but very interesting seeing this from the GFS today. And the more interesting thing is we're seeing consistency from both the GEM and the ECMWF. Now the GEM only goes out to day 10 along with the ECMWF, so interesting that it is showing it already in the day 10 time frame. Again, that low drops southwards over the course of Friday to Saturday, and that lobe of high pressure that heads northwards sticks towards Scandinavia, and it starts to push in easterly winds. Now here it's not a clear-cut easterly similar to the GFS, where it is struggling to really pull in an easterly flow, but this is setting up to be an easterly. Cool or cold areas to our east and would head our way, but again, nothing bitterly cold imminently. We'd really need this big push of cold air to come our way, which would take a good 3, 4, 5 days from this point. So it is one to watch again, but nothing majorly cold. But easterly winds, again, looking quite likely here in the longer range from the GM. Now, if compared to the ECMWF, again, a flat westerly over the coming days. Low pressure eventually sits over the top of us. Then high pressure builds up towards Scandinavia. And then we do see an easterly and even more of a clear-cut easterly here by day 10. Again, the air masses to our east are not that cold, but -5, -10 line could push in the subsequent days. So again, not beast from the east or anything like that, but definitely looking quite a lot cooler, maybe even colder. And again, one to watch very closely. Now, if you finish by looking at the latest ensembles, you can't really see too many hints of those easterlies in the longer range, because as we saw from the 3 operational runs, even though they were all showing an easterly flow developing, not many of them actually got any real cold air in. The GFS operational did, got some coolish air, -4 to -6, and you see it colder there. And there were a few runs supporting with it. But I do think really is going to be one to watch over the coming days to see what could happen with that. But over the course of next week, you can see it's turning much chillier over the coming days into next week, and then it's going to turn more average to maybe above average, and it's going to stay around there as we head into early March, where we could start to see, as I said, easterly winds developing. These temperatures do look chilly over the coming days, mid to single digits, but could rise back up to the double digits by next week. Dew points again dropping down towards freezing, and that does bring the risk of some winteriness in places, but after that into next week, we're looking back into the low single digits. Nothing incredibly mild though. If we saw something incredibly mild, you'd be wanting 8 to 10 or higher than that in terms of dew points. So it does show you that a very strong westerly flow, mild mid-Atlantic air does look off the cards for the time being. The pressure looks to rise as well in the longer term. Again, that's coincides, of course, with a potential for a Scandinavian high. Those things go hand in hand. So not surprising to see that rise in the longer term as well. And now if we finish by looking at the latest ECM, the ref, again, it's very similar. Chilly over the next week or so, maybe not quite as cold or below average as the GFS, but still average to a below average, and then average to slightly above average, around that 5th to 12th of March point. And then we could see a few runs dipping there in the extended range, but nothing too crazy at this stage. Again, just one to watch. And similar to the GFS, we do have a pressure rise in the longer term, so perhaps both are starting to see that pressure rise, with that high pressure potentially building up towards Scandinavia. So big things to watch over the next couple of weeks. Some very interesting synoptics are possible, but I must say I don't think we're going to see anything too severe or anything too majorly cold unless we see some substantial changes in those air masses to our east. Because even if we did see an absolutely full-on, full-blown easterly wind, if there's no cold air within 1,000 miles of us, which is what some of these runs are showing, then we're not going to see anything cold at all. That is going to be one to watch, though, over the coming days. We've got some chillier weather later this week, and I'll keep up my eye on that. Of course, update you if we see any warnings issued, which are looking probably likely, maybe ice, and maybe even an isolated snow warning, because cool temperatures and a lot of precipitation around could cause some issues. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.